Welcome to Off the Record, the podcast that explores the craft of music supervision and original music composition. I am Clément Souchet. I am the founder of Bridge Audio and previously founder of Criminal Music Supervision. And today I'm very thrilled, very happy to welcome Milena Fessmann. She is one of the most influential music supervisors in Europe. She worked on 500 projects so far. Is it true, Milena? Welcome, Milena, first.
Thank you very much. To be honest, I lost count, but I think it's around 500. But I'm doing that since a very long time, maybe a bit more, but yeah.
I'm very happy to have you with us. My first question will be pretty simple, or maybe not that simple, but what originally led you to music supervision? We all know there are no schools for that. There were no schools when we both started. There are still no school for that. So what is the way you've been starting within music supervision?
As I had a radio show since a very long time, and I used to DJ a lot, not very skilled, like super hot, but just playing one record after the other one. So, and I worked for the radio and I did critics about films. And I've had a lot of friends who were working in the film industry. And to be honest, and it sounds a bit arrogant, I just didn't like the music in German films. Being young and arrogant, I thought, hey, maybe they should ask me. I know better. And then I started and had to learn a lot because I didn't know anything about rights clearing and budgets and stuff like that. So it was just the very naive idea, hey, I have a great record collection and probably I know more about music than the director does and I can give input. That's how it started.
Okay. And yeah, indeed. So the idea is that you wanted to listen some better music in the films you were watching. That's an interesting point of view and starter. And so at what moment did you finally say, okay, this is it. This is what I'm going to do. And how did you start to professionalize yourself as a music supervisor?
It was actually the moment when it came together. It was in 1989. And I remember sitting with a friend of mine who worked in a marketing agency, and we were having dinner and drinks, and I told him about the idea, and then we started finding names. And then Song came up, and actually that was the moment where I thought, okay, I start. And just sitting at my desk trying to start. And then I just, I think that what we all do, you go around, you meet people, you tell them about the idea, then you have the first project, which was in my case, a short film by a friend of mine. And then I did another one, and then I did another one. And then I learned by doing it, I learned sort of like the rights clearing and all this, which is involved. And I pretty quickly learned that it's not about having wine, drinking with a director, listening to great music, but it's actually more about the other part, like rights clearing, talking about taste and stuff like that. So
yeah, very interesting. So you said you started Song in 1999?
98. So it's
98. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry.
At this time, it was really, really early days of music supervision. I mean, most of us didn't know what a music supervisor was. How did you start? I mean, how the industry react when you said, okay, I am a music supervisor, because none of other music supervisors were working at this time to find music, clear tracks and so on. I guess before doing that, most of the director and producers you were working with were looking for the music by themselves and clearing the tracks by themselves. So how did they react positively?
Now, there used to be two music supervisors who started it in Germany, Klaus Freers and Andreas Kirnberger. They had a company together. They all came from the record industry, so from the label side. And they did Lola Runs by Tom Tykwer. And I think that was the beginning. And as we all know that it's quite common to be a music supervisor in the US, they just grabbed the idea and started a business here. And that was, I think, 95 or something like that. So Lola Rand was 96. Mm-hmm. And that also, of course, helped my idea to, okay, they actually do it, so I can do it as well. And then, as you said, it was not a very common idea. And sometimes it's still not today. So I think there's still projects in Germany where there is no supervisor. Mm-hmm. And as we have the blanket license on television for a lot of things, they normally never use a supervisor. But it's quite more common now, but at that time it was not a decision for me to, okay, I make a living out of me being a music supervisor. It was a hobby. And it became bigger and bigger. I think I was lucky because the industry was learning what a music supervisor is and how to use a music supervisor. And by the same time, I was learning to be a music supervisor. So it was a bit learning on both sides. And I was lucky because I was the young one. Yeah, so I had directors who were my age, and these other colleagues, they were a little bit older. There was another one as well. So I was just lucky because I was young and I had a radio show and I had the DJing experience. So maybe it was for them just, they couldn't feel, they thought that I might bring in more new ideas. Let's call it like this.
Interesting. And with the composers, I mean, the original score composers, was it new as well for them to sometimes need to talk together with a music supervisor?
Yeah, it was really new. And I think it's still that there are certain composers who still don't like to work with the music supervisors because they somehow feel it's a competition in a way. And I'm always trying to tell them, no, if everything is fine, then you will hear nothing from me. Yeah. Because if the director and the composer work together perfectly, no one needs me. Yeah. The only thing is when they're searching for composers in the beginning, which they probably do with 30%, because normally the director has a composer, or you have to do a research because you have to you do a Danish co-production and you need someone from Denmark because you have to spend the money in Denmark, for example. And I could come in if they don't understand each other and it's getting problematic, and I can sort of like moderate and try to find a way to get them together. But most of the composers, especially the younger, newer ones, are pretty used to have a music supervisor on board.
Yeah, I totally agree. I remember also that in France, beginning of music supervisors were not that well understood by composers, and sometimes they were thinking that we might be a competitor because we might recommend sometimes to use commercial music instead of original music. But today, I guess everyone understood that it's not a competition. We just need to keep doing the best for the movie, and sometimes for a certain scene, you will need existing music, and sometimes you need to compose something for the scene. Totally agree. And you nailed it a bit, but being a music supervisor is, of course, to have certain taste and a huge knowledge about music, but it's not the only thing. What are the critical skills you rely on in your day-to-day work?
Yeah, I think it's nowadays, I think it would be experience, because you know that you learn and learn. And with every new movie, there's probably something which you didn't know before. Either meeting a new person at a sync place or whatever, but also interesting cases come up all the time. Yeah, when you try to clear something which is not clearable, and then you go like this Sherlock Holmes way to find rights holders wherever in the world they are, and then or you have 79.3 point cleared and the other points no one knows about, and then you're just like, how can you sell a song to me? Because we actually want to give you money. Yeah, why do I have to do the research for the last 3% of copyright when actually I'm offering you 20,000? It's actually not. It should not be my job, but of course it is my job. And yeah, I think experience is one thing. And yeah, because one knows the people, or the main people in the big publishing houses and labels, which I'm always dealing with. I know them since a long time. There's a trusty relationship. And I think this is what makes things easier. And of course, I love that I'm happily connected to a lot of producers and directors, more producers probably than directors. And so there are new projects coming in, which I think is really great, especially in these times. So I'm pretty humble and happy that it's still going on very good.
Now maybe we can focus on a few projects of yours. I just want to talk about one first movie you've been working on, Perfect Days, by Wim Wenders. Can you walk us through this experience of working on this movie? Very Wim Wenders-ish, very interesting, happening in Japan with a few tracks, but a few big tracks, a few big hits. And can you talk a bit about that experience?
Of course. And first, I have to say I'm working with Wim since 20 years, so we know each other pretty well. And there's a team, of course, around his production company, but also his foundation. So we know each other pretty well, and we did a lot of good and not so good movies together. So which helps a lot. And there's also my friend Barbara Berndorf, who's a music lawyer, who's also Wim Wenders music lawyer. So we are a team which makes it much easier, of course. And in this case, it's an interesting story because it was not planned this way. Wim was invited by a guy who sponsored 10 toilet houses in Shibuya in Tokyo. So they were rebuilt by famous architects. And he invited Wim to do a documentary about these rebuildings of these toilet houses. So Wim went there. He came and there was still lockdown. So there was basically no one in the street, and he walked around. And as you know, he's also famous for his photos, the pictures he does. So he's been a fan of Japan all the time. He did a movie there and is friends with Yamamoto, whatever. So and then he met a screenwriter, and they came up with the idea: let's make a story about a guy who is actually cleaning these toilet houses. But let's do it on the documentary basis. So 13 shooting days, only steady cam, no sets, just very plain and simple. And then he talked to the guy who asked him for, and he said, oh yeah, that's great, let's do that. And that was the Japanese production company who did it, and Wim Wenders production company as well. So we talked with them, and they had the script, and everybody said, do it. Yeah, and then there was the script, and as it's always with Wim is a music fan, so he has ideas. He's the only person I know in the world who uses the star system in iTunes. Yeah, where you have like 5 stars and 3 stars.
I used to use it.
And yeah, I used to do it, but I'm not doing it anymore. But okay, and then there were all the songs, basically all the songs who are in the film now were in the script already. One is missing because we couldn't clear it. They wanted to use Prince, Sign of the Times, and I don't know the reason, it's impossible to clear Prince. We tried everything. Universal Publishing did it. The head of in the US with the Prince Foundation. We called everybody. We called the co-writer of the song. She tried it. It's just that it never answered. So we didn't even get a figure. So it had to be replaced. And yeah, and actually it was a bit of a riot. But Wim was a close friend with Lou Reed. So I cleared Perfect Days for Wim Wenders films, I think, for 3 times.
Okay.
His Laurie Anderson and her lawyer, so we know her. So that was actually pretty easy. Patti Smith is a close friend to Wim. That was pretty easy as well. The Stones were difficult in a way because it's APCO. It's the publishing company of Alan Klein, who, Google him, is a bit of a difficult character, or was a bit of a difficult character. And it wasn't that easy with APCO as well. But with all the other ones, to be honest, it was just pretty easy, and they loved the project. And it's easy to say now because of the success story the film made. Nobody believed that it's ever gonna be on this way ever. Yeah, because when I saw a rough cut, I was like, oh, it's a nice one. Yeah, but not a masterpiece. And I saw it for the first time done properly, like graded and stuff in Cannes in the competition. And I was like, everybody was blown away. So no one had it on the radar that it's gonna be. Everyone thought it's a little tiny small movie about toilet houses.
Yeah.
And it was very funny because when I first tried to clear the rights, I told the people that the movie is called It's About Toilets. Yeah, and it was called, the first working title was Toilet Cleaner or something like that. And everyone came back and said, like, what is the movie about? Is it a bit kinky? Is it strange? And I was like, no, it's actually about a toilet cleaner. So there's nothing strange about that.
Creepy.
So then they, of course, changed it, but that made it easier. But the clearing wasn't that difficult besides the Prince thing. And I still don't understand it.
Yeah, that's very interesting because for those that don't really know about music supervision, that's the kind of situation we can face as music supervisors. When we made a call previously to this interview, we were talking about that sometimes some directors or producers, they consider that when they ask a music supervisor to go and buy a track, it's more or less as if they were asking him or her to go to the supermarket and get a milk box. And so, whereas it's, as you said, I loved the expression you used about this Sherlock Holmes stuff. Sometimes it's like a very complex situation where the right holders are dead and you need to find the kids, the children of this right holder and that kind of thing. And sometimes, yeah, indeed, it doesn't work. And at the end, you even don't really know why. It can be for so many reasons, but it's kind of frustrating not to come back to the director with the tracks they are waiting for. But that's happening sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And besides this project, there is another one I would like to talk about that is totally different. It's the biopic on Maria Callas, Maria, with Angelina Jolie. It's always a challenge to do a biopic because you need to use the original tracks, I guess, or at least that's what I understood. But you have an actor or actress here. And so you need to make this work perfectly well and very smoothly between the spoken part and the sung part. Was it kind of a challenge to deal with that?
As you said, the problem with a biopic is that you can't replace the music, especially when it's about a singer as Maria Callas. So you have to have Maria Callas recordings. Otherwise, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
But I wasn't the only supervisor. We had a Csaba Spaltai, a Hungarian supervisor who did all the recordings of the orchestra and the choir, because there's a lot of orchestra and choir in there. So we had a lot of recordings. We didn't actually had to license, but we had them by ourselves. And there was John Warhorst, which is a super genius. He did all the biopics. He did Rocket Man. He did the Queen, Bohemian Rhapsody. He did Michael Jackson and all these stuff. So he's a mastermind of combining existing voices like Freddie Mercury or Elton John and mingling it with the voice of the actor.
He's a sound engineer?
Yeah, he's of course more than that. He's super skilled. Yeah. I don't know what the title is, actually what he's, and he did all the mixing and all this kind of, he actually made the sound which we can hear in the film in total. And of course, he said in the beginning that the actors actually have to sing, because otherwise you don't believe it. You have to see the muscles in the face and stuff, and especially when it's an opera. No one would believe it if she just tries to perform. So Angelina did have to sing, and she did. So we didn't use it, of course. So it's probably 1 point, or no, 0.01 point Angelina in there. Yeah, mixed to the Maria Callas thing, but it's not. No one will find it. So, but we had to have her sing, and it was a very intimate situation. So he basically recorded it because she's not an opera singer. She tried for 6 months. But it's a challenge, yeah, especially when you try to sound like Maria Callas, which is not possible. So so we used the original recordings, and they're with Warner. So we had to do, or we did, overall deal with Warner, because all the exclusive rights belong to Warner, and they were super nice. And they did the soundtrack. We have the vinyl soundtrack, and we invited them to the premiere in Venice. So it was a very, very nice experience, but it was a difficult one in a way, because not all the rights were with Warner Classic in France, some were in Italy, and especially because we used the last recording Maria Callas did as a comeback in 1973, which was not a very good performance because she was not at 100%. But we wanted to use especially that because we wanted to show that, because in the film she wants to have a comeback, and it's not working. So we actually used this not super recording because we wanted to show that she's not on top of her voice any longer. So it was a bit like dealing and stuff like that. And there are people out there who claim that they have rights to recordings from her, but I think they don't. So we had to find a way in the jungle of releases out there. So we decided we only go with Warner because they are the official ones.
Yeah, okay. So it's on the legal part, it was a more simple project than maybe others because just one right holder to talk with, right?
Yeah, but there was a foundation, or there is a foundation. No one has contacted before. So I contacted them. They had heard about the movie, of course. So it was a bit like tiptoeing through minefields, trying to avoid that any of these minefields might explode. So it was very much a moderating process more
Hmm.
than a dealing process. It was, and that's where I learned a lot, and that's where I thought it's super good to have experienced music supervisor who can, if they, you would totally agree, if sometimes you have to think forward. You have to
Hmm.
see, okay, this could be a problem if we do not go there. So that's why I mean by trespassing
Hmm.
very slowly and trying to get everyone involved and to make everyone happy. And so we did a screening with Warner because they were afraid that we're actually working their music. So,
Hmm.
and we did a screening to show them, okay, because the only thing we said is we're mixing in Atmos, and the records are made for records, but they're not for a film
Hmm.
screen. So we have to work on the sound of the records, doing it in Atmos. So we need the stems and we need to deal with them. So we made a screening for them in Paris, and John and the producer Jonas were super, super nervous. Yeah, because they
Yeah.
thought, oh my God, what will happen if they don't like the movie? So, and everybody was sitting, Barbara and me were sitting here in Berlin and they were in Paris. And we were just like, okay, now they're going into the screening room. Let's see what happens. And then they just sent a picture where John and Jonas were sitting outside drinking champagne. And we were just like, okay. And Warner
We
loved the
got it.
music
Yeah.
movie. Yeah. So, but you don't know. Yeah. I think, but because, of course, what happens? What happens if
Hmm.
they don't like the music and they don't like the movie? We have
Hmm.
signed contracts. They will not stop the movie. Yeah. But they can make the life pretty difficult
Yeah,
and the
totally.
communication. So yeah, we were lucky. We thought that they like it because it's how can you not like the film? Yeah, maybe you have
Yeah.
some critical points, but coming from a record company side, it's the best thing happened to them because to be honest, who over under 30 has ever heard of Maria Callas?
Yeah, totally.
But
It's
everyone knows Angelina Jolie. So building up new audiences.
yeah, totally. And so they were able to send you the separate files, what we call in our work the stems. I mean, Warner had the separated files of these recordings.
Not of all of them.
Okay.
Yeah, they had a few. So when we could get them, or we just because we did so many recordings with the Budapest Film Orchestra, so
Okay.
we sometimes just edited a bit of this music to the records, but as I said, on a very, very, very careful way, so
Hmm.
no one out there can hear a difference to the original recordings. Just that it's
Hmm.
made more for films and film
Hmm.
screens. That's the only
Hmm.
thing, and that's
I
what
got it.
John also did.
Amazing. So that said, and now maybe focusing on discoverability, discovery of music. You've been saying that, for instance, with Wim, sometimes he's already coming with his own ideas. That's the case for some of the directors we can work with as music supervisors, but some others are very interested in knowing what Milena would think about what track would be in Milena's mind, the best one for that specific scene, and so on. And so when it's about finding new tracks or discovering new music, do you have a particular way to search and dive into music? That's a subject I always love to talk about.
I think there are different ways. I'm lucky because as I have this radio show, I'm getting a lot of music for that just by radio promoters who send emails. So
Hmm.
I'm in the loop with new music at all.
Every day. Yeah.
So, and I know a lot of publishers and record companies who send out newsletters. So it's easier for me than probably for normal people to stay on track. Yeah. But I think the skills is most of the time, and you know that by yourself, of course, as well, it's actually not about being super creative and find a great track. It's also about, is it in the budget? So
Hmm.
it doesn't help that I bring in my favorite super hip hop tracks, but most of the time I have to skip my favorite hip hop tracks because we cannot afford them. So I have to
Yeah.
start looking around for other cool hip hop tracks, but who are in the price range of, let's say, 5,000 to 10,000 euros, or
Hmm.
even go to a library because we just cannot afford that.
Hmm.
So I think it's a mixture, but I actually just do what everyone else does. I listen to Spotify, new, fresh. Radio 1 has a new playlist every week. So I'm listening, and I'm lucky because we have Radio 1 in Berlin. We play a lot of modern music. So I think it's a mixture. And sometimes I'm just doing a research, yeah, when it's a special kind
Hmm.
of music. Or I do a Spotify playlist or sometimes an iTunes playlist and go through my music and just put in randomly, which I think could fit from my experience or from my taste. And then I'm skipping out many tracks and I'm trying out, or I'm doing a research. Let's say but what did I have recently? Queer Spanish modern music. And then I'm asking around, I'm asking publishers, do you have this kind of music in the price range of, I don't know, 10,000 euros, something like that. So it's a mixture, I think. And sometimes I have, and probably every music supervisor has that. Of course, I have a playlist with my all-time favorites, which I always wanted to bring into a film and never could. But the list is still there.
Yeah, the one you want to find a house for.
Yes.
I got it. And I know that we were talking about that by starting this interview, at the time we started this work of music supervision. There were no school for that, but now I know that you are teaching also music supervision in some school in Germany. Can you talk a bit about that?
Actually, I'm not teaching music supervising. I'm teaching at film schools.
Okay.
And I tell them about rights clearing, or the basic idea. It's the DFFB in Berlin and the film school in Cologne and the one in Potsdam, Babelsberg. Most of the time, I'm actually telling them, okay, you have to clear music rights. Don't think that they randomly happen to be cleared. So think about it, think early, think within the budget, and be creative and try different things. It's not the film is not dying when you cannot get this specific song. Maybe another one is much better. So this is basically directors and producers, and sometimes composers in the composers class. And I did at the BIM, British Institute of Music and Media. I teach music publishing and rights management. And of course, being a music supervisor, I told them a lot about the work of a music supervisor. And sometimes students in these classes want to become a music supervisor. So, or I'm at panels at Soundtrack Cologne and then meeting people, and they ask how to become a music supervisor. And then I'm telling them a bit. And there are of course younger people trying to do this and asking me how to become a music supervisor. And I'm giving everyone the same answer: mingle with the people, because it's a people's business. You cannot. There is actually, someone told me there's a online class in Berkeley where you can learn music supervising. But still, I think with every skill you have, if you do not test it in the out world, then you could have as many courses, classes as you want. But being alone at home, being a music supervisor doesn't help. You have to get to know people. That's the main
to know people,
thing.
to start with the people of your age and start doing short films and start doing small stuff. Totally agree. And that's interesting what you said about also teaching to the producers or future professionals of this industry, how important it is to clear. And maybe even, I don't know if you talk sometimes about the budget, because for instance, in France, I remember that even quite not so long ago, they were still saying that music was more or less roughly 1% of a film budget, which is very special to say that kind of thing, because it can be, of course, way more, it can be way less. 1% is very, very small, I would say. So that's interesting also to let the producers and the directors know about what are the prices, what are the good way, what is the good moment to start thinking about the music of their movies. And it's not always the same moment accordingly to the kind of movie.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I would love to be involved earlier. So when they do the calculation, telling them, okay, if you do a rom-com, a commercial rom-com, and you have a budget of 30,000 euros, it's not going to work. So it's going to be not this kind of rom-com movie the audience expects, because they're sort of trained. They're at least there has to be one super hit in it, and then the budget is done. And when you're in the process of calculation, you still can do something. And as I'm a film producer as well, so I know how to make a calculation, and I know how to handle this. I know, of course, that in the music part is the part which is the most volatile. Yeah. So if you need an extra shooting day, if you need it, if you have an insurance case, then everything comes out of the music budget, because it's a flu, something like that. But still, if people think about it or ask someone, then they can avoid having these problems. We want 15 super hits, but we have 20,000 euros. And then you are the one saying, that's not gonna work. You maybe get one super hit, but not so much else.
Yeah, I totally agree. And now considering the way the work is going and the future of this work of music supervision, do you see changes in the way we are doing this today compared to like 10 or 20 years ago? And do you see the work of music supervision becoming even different in the near future or not that much?
I think you will probably agree, having the internet and now having AI helps a lot. I used to remember, because I worked for the radio station, it's a public radio station, we had an archive. So I had to go there and get CDs and then grab the CD, burn them, sort of trying to get them into my computer, because there was iTunes was pretty early and it was a heaven for me. Yeah, but before that we had, and yeah, it was just another time. So there was, I'm not a fan of Spotify, but it's really helpful, of course. Yeah. And that you can just that you have YouTube. When I started, there was no YouTube. Yeah. So, and it was far more difficult to find out about the rights, because not so many people had their catalog online and stuff like that. So that's a huge help. And I think this will, of course, be far more change in the future with AI and stuff like that. So with all the different, you did bridge audio, and there are many, many different platforms opening up where things are hopefully getting easier between the rights holder and the production company, but also for research. When you're used for, especially with library music now, you can just upload a YouTube link with a song, and then the system puts out similar sounding tracks, which is totally helpful and it makes life much easier. I think, or I hope, which is still, I think the interesting part is that a friend of mine always says, the funny thing is we want to give publishers and labels money so that they can earn something. It's not that I'm getting money. I'm paid by the producer. I give away money, and still I'm the one who has, not always, but one could have a feeling that one is disturbing them, annoying them, coming along with a request, and you're just like, hey, do you want to earn money? Then help me, come on. Yeah. So and I think that was the way how it was in the old times, where it was just like you had to pay so much more. Especially, I'm not doing commercials, but I knew about the prices, and they were in a way arrogant. Yeah. So if you want our music, then you have to pay, and you're the one requesting it. And I think this is changing a lot, because sync is such a huge business and such an important business, as no one is buying CDs or not so much vinyl anymore. So I think these things are about to change. And of course, these connections between people, and probably the process of pushing a button and getting a license out of it. Besides negotiating for 7 weeks within 7 parties about a little aspect in the contract. So that's mainly it.
Yeah, that it should even become way more easy in the near future, in your opinion. Totally agree with that.
But I don't know. Sorry, just let me add. I'm not sure if we see the bad or the dark side of AI. Maybe they will replace the music supervisor as well. Yeah, because someone does the right search via ChatGPT, which I sometimes use as well. Yeah, to help me find ideas. I'm not super afraid now, because there's still so much going on between people, but maybe it could be that there is no supervisors in the future, but not for art house movies, probably.
Yeah, I think we still have a good future for music supervisor, because there are a lot of things that you are doing that an AI wouldn't be able to do. And it's also important to have someone that you can say, okay, what happens now?
Yeah.
Why do I not have systems delivered today as agreed? So yeah, talking with an AI on that side is not that easy. Thank you so much, Milena, for joining us today. It was really interesting to understand more about the way you've been going into this amazing work of music supervision, and also to have your insight about your project. We will share a few links together with this podcast, so we will share links about some of the projects you've been working on. So that's it. Thank you again, Milena. This was Off the Record. I hope you enjoy this episode, and feel free to subscribe and share it. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Milena.
Thank you very much.